Explosions lit up Yemen's Red Sea coast in a series of powerful blasts. The night sky was illuminated by the intense fires that erupted following the strikes, sending plumes of smoke billowing into the air. The scale of the explosions suggests a coordinated and significant military operation. Israeli fighter jets launched a major wave of airstrikes late Sunday night, marking a significant development in the ongoing tensions in the region. The roar of the jets could be heard across the coastline as they approached their targets under the cover of darkness. These were not isolated incidents, but rather a calculated and comprehensive assault. The operation targeted Houthi-controlled sites, focusing on key strategic locations that are vital to the group's military capabilities and logistical operations. These sites included command centers, weapons depots, and communication hubs, all essential for the Houthis' ability to project power. This marks a sharp escalation in the regional conflict, raising concerns about a wider conflagration that could engulf the already volatile Middle East. The strikes represent a direct confrontation between Israel and the Houthis, two actors who have been engaged in a proxy war for years. Strikes hit the ports of Hodeida, a crucial hub for humanitarian aid and commercial shipping, raising concerns about the impact on the already dire humanitarian situation in Yemen. The port is a lifeline for millions of Yemenis who rely on it for food, medicine, and other essential supplies. Ras Isa, a key oil terminal on the Red Sea coast, was also targeted, potentially disrupting the flow of vital energy resources and further destabilizing the region's economy. The terminal is a critical piece of infrastructure for Yemen, handling a significant portion of the country's oil exports, and Salif, another important port city, all vital entry points for goods into Yemen, and their disruption could have severe consequences for the country's economy and its ability to import essential goods. The targeting of these ports suggests a deliberate effort to cripple the Houthis' ability to sustain their operations. The Ras Kanatib power plant was also bombed, further exacerbating the already critical electricity shortages in the region. This is crippling local infrastructure and impacting the daily lives of ordinary Yemenis, who are already struggling with poverty and conflict. The destruction of the power plant will undoubtedly have long-lasting effects on the region's economy and its ability to recover from the war. Israel's military confirmed the attacks, stating that they were carried out in response to the escalating threats posed by the Houthis. They called them a necessary response to Houthi threats in the Red Sea, which have disrupted international shipping and posed a significant risk to maritime security. The Israeli military emphasized that it would not tolerate any attempts to undermine its interests in the region. Over a dozen jets dropped more than 50 munitions, indicating the scale and intensity of the operation. The strikes were aimed at disrupting Houthi operations, targeting their ability to launch attacks and maintain their control over key areas in Yemen. The operation also targeted economic assets, aiming to weaken the Houthis' financial resources and their ability to fund their military activities. The Houthis have been attacking ships linked to Israel, claiming they are acting in solidarity with the Palestinians. These attacks have disrupted global shipping, causing delays and increasing costs for businesses around the world. The Houthi actions are drawing international condemnation, with many countries calling for an end to the attacks and a return to negotiations. Israel's direct strikes on Yemeni soil represent a significant departure from its previous strategy of indirect involvement in the conflict. These strikes send a clear message that threats to its maritime interests will be met with force, and that it is willing to take direct action to protect its economic and security interests in the region. This escalation pushes the Israel-Houthi confrontation into a new and dangerous phase, raising the specter of a wider regional war. This is a more dangerous phase for the region, with potentially far-reaching consequences for international security and stability. The world watches with bated breath as the situation unfolds. Israel says its airstrikes are a direct response to months of Houthi attacks on commercial and military vessels in the Red Sea. Israeli leaders frame these actions as defensive, aimed at protecting national security and international trade. The Houthis, backed by Iran, have vowed to keep attacking as long as the Gaza conflict continues. Defense Minister Israel Katz warns that any threat to Israel will be met with severe retaliation. The IDF claims Houthi attacks are growing more sophisticated, endangering global shipping lanes. By targeting coastal infrastructure, Israel aims to cripple the Houthis' ability to launch drones and missiles. Officials argue that failing to act would only embolden further attacks. Israel insists it will act preemptively to eliminate threats from Yemen. Israeli airstrikes have been strategically focused on Yemen's most critical infrastructure, aiming to cripple the Houthis' ability to wage war and maintain control. These strikes weren't random acts of aggression, they were carefully planned operations targeting key nodes within Yemen's economic and logistical network. The goal was to disrupt supply lines, limit access to resources, and ultimately weaken the Houthis' military capabilities. These strategic targets were primarily located along the Red Sea, a vital waterway for trade and transportation. The Red Sea's strategic importance makes it a crucial area to control for any power seeking influence in the region. The port of Hodeida, a bustling hub of activity, became a focal point of the attacks. Hodeida serves as Yemen's main gateway for aid and goods, a lifeline for a population already struggling with widespread poverty and malnutrition. The port is essential for bringing in food, medicine, and other essential supplies. As such, it was a primary target in the campaign to weaken the Houthis. The damage inflicted on the port has had a devastating impact on the flow of essential goods into the country. Strikes also hit Ras Isa, an oil terminal critical for fuel imports and exports, further exacerbating the country's energy crisis. The destruction of this terminal has had a ripple effect throughout the Yemeni economy. And Salif, a key grain port responsible for importing much of Yemen's staple foods, was also targeted. The attacks on these ports effectively choked off vital imports for northern Yemen, pushing the region closer to famine. The consequences of these actions are dire, with millions facing starvation and disease. The Ras Kanatib power plant, a critical piece of infrastructure, supplying electricity to Hodeida and surrounding areas, was bombed, leaving countless civilians without power. The destruction of the power plant has had a cascading effect on essential services. This disruption of power has impacted civilian life and military operations alike, further destabilizing the region. Hospitals, schools, and homes have all been affected by the power outages. Israel's strategy appears to be a calculated effort to disrupt Houthi logistics and cripple their economic resources. The aim is to weaken their campaign and force them to the negotiating table. However, the cost of this strategy is being borne by the Yemeni people. These dual-use facilities, while potentially serving military purposes, also provide essential services to civilians, creating a complex ethical dilemma. The attacks are raising the risk of worsening Yemen's already catastrophic humanitarian crisis, pushing millions closer to the brink of starvation and disease. Damaging these nodes is undoubtedly meant to hamper Houthi operations and limit their ability to project power. But it also threatens the lives and livelihoods of millions of Yemeni civilians who rely on these ports and power stations for their survival. The strikes reflect a calculated effort to inflict maximum disruption on the Houthis' war effort. The humanitarian fallout is immediate and severe, with the potential for long-term consequences that will affect generations to come. Amidst the complex web of targets in the ongoing conflict, Israeli forces have been actively engaging various strategic points. One such target was the Galaxy Leader, a name that has become synonymous with the escalating tensions in the region. This cargo ship gained notoriety when it was seized by Houthi forces back in 2023, marking a significant turning point in the maritime conflict. The seizure itself was a bold move, highlighting the Houthis' capability to disrupt international shipping lanes. The Galaxy Leader began its journey as a commercial vessel, a typical merchant ship navigating the seas. However, its fate took a dramatic turn when it was repurposed and converted into a military platform, a transformation that significantly altered its role in the conflict. Beyond its military function, the ship also became a potent propaganda symbol for the Houthis, a floating statement of their power and defiance. According to Israeli intelligence reports, the Houthis strategically installed advanced radar systems on the ship, enhancing its capabilities. This radar was primarily used to meticulously track the movements of ships in the Red Sea, providing crucial data. This information was then used to guide attacks, posing a significant threat to maritime traffic. By striking the Galaxy Leader, Israel sought to neutralize this threat and regain control of the seas. The primary objective was to eliminate a key Houthi surveillance asset, disrupting their ability to monitor and target ships in the Red Sea. The ship's transformation from a commercial vessel to a military asset starkly highlights the increasingly blurred lines between civilian and military targets in modern conflicts, especially in the maritime domain. This incident underscores the complexities and challenges of identifying legitimate targets in this ongoing conflict. Adding to the complexity of the situation is the fate of the ship's 25 international crew members who have been held hostage since the ship's capture, their lives hanging in the balance. Their fate remains uncertain, casting a shadow of concern over their families and loved ones. The attack on the Galaxy leader raises serious concerns for their safety and well-being, and underscores the immense risks faced by civilians who are caught in the crossfire of this escalating conflict. Israel's message is clear: any asset, regardless of its original purpose, that is used for military purposes becomes a legitimate target in the eyes of the Israeli military. The situation remains incredibly volatile and dangerous for all parties involved, with the potential for further escalation and unforeseen consequences. Houthi attacks on shipping triggered Israel's response. Just before the airstrikes, Houthis hit the Liberian-flagged Magic Seas with missiles and drone boats, sinking the vessel. The crew was forced to abandon ship and rescued by nearby vessels. The Houthis claim such attacks are retaliation for ships linked to Israel, framing them as a blockade in solidarity with Gaza. These tactics have disrupted global trade, forcing shipping companies to reroute and raising costs worldwide. The sinking of the Magic Seas shows the Houthis' growing capabilities and determination. Despite international patrols, the Red Sea remains a high-risk zone. The threat to shipping is real and ongoing. The conflict's impact is felt far beyond the region. The Israeli airstrikes are part of a broader escalation since May 2025. Israel has shifted from defense to direct attacks on Houthi targets inside Yemen, intensifying the conflict. A turning point came with the May 6th strike on Sana'a International Airport, disabling a key Houthi hub. Israeli leaders have since issued harsh warnings, promising more strikes if Houthi attacks continue. The cycle of action and retaliation has drawn Yemen deeper into a regional conflict. Each side sees itself as justified, fueling a dangerous spiral. Yemen, already devastated by civil war, is now a battleground for regional powers. The escalation shows no sign of ending soon. Beneath the headlines, Yemen's humanitarian crisis is worsening. Over half the population, more than 18 million, needs aid, with millions facing acute food shortages. Yemen relies on imports for 90% of its food, so attacks on ports threaten survival for millions. Humanitarian groups warn that strikes on infrastructure will push more Yemenis toward famine. The destruction of the Ras Kanatib power plant cripples hospitals, water supplies, and schools. Public services are collapsing, making disease outbreaks and hunger more likely. For Yemenis, every new strike means greater hardship and uncertainty. Amid the violence, a diplomatic twist emerged. The US and Houthis agreed to a ceasefire as Israeli strikes began. The US will halt its bombing in Yemen, and the Houthis will stop attacking ships in the Red Sea. President Trump called it a victory, but the deal excludes Israel. The US steps back, but Israel continues its campaign against the Houthis. The Houthis say their fight with Israel will go on as long as the Gaza conflict persists. The ceasefire highlights diverging priorities. The US seeks safe shipping, Israel seeks to eliminate a direct threat. The result is a strange standoff. One power de-escalates, while another escalates. The Israel-Houthi conflict is now the Red Sea's most active front. The US-Houthi ceasefire offers hope for shipping, but Israel's strikes keep the region on edge. Israel is determined to act alone to protect its interests, escalating its confrontation with the Houthis. This standoff risks spiraling into wider conflict with regional and global consequences. Yemen's civilians are caught in the middle, suffering as infrastructure is destroyed and aid becomes scarce. The world's focus may be on military moves, but the real cost is paid by ordinary Yemenis. The conflict is about more than ships and missiles. It's a struggle for survival amid power struggles. The actions of Israel, the Houthis, and the US shape the fate of millions. Understanding this crisis means recognizing its human toll and the difficulty of finding peace. For Yemen, the future remains deeply uncertain.